Merry Christmas, everybody. One day late. We are actually recording this a day after Christmas. So hope you all had a great Christmas. This is Groomed in 10. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. How was your Christmas?
It was fantastic. Had all the kids and grandkids over on Christmas Eve. Did our Christmas Eve. Had a grand time. We partied
Awesome.
hard.
Did you? Yeah, our New Year's Eve was great. Rachel's family came over, most of them, about 10 of us, and we had I set up a pickleball tournament out in my garage, and I didn't think it was going to go well. I didn't know if it was going to go well at all, but after everybody like did it once, they all got into it, and we ended up doing a losers bracket, and it became a big deal, and it was great. It was a really fun, competitive time, and it was laughing, having a good time, enjoying each other. It was better than just sitting around, I don't know, eating food and getting fat and all
Yeah,
that. So it was a good time. So yeah.
yeah. We did plenty of
So
that. So
yeah.
I got a bit of a Christmas present yesterday. On Christmas, we went to have lunch with some friends of ours, and uh, her mother was in town, and the podcast came up, and she asked about it, and I told her about it, and she commented to me, sort of unprovoked, and I didn't really say what our motive in the podcast was. She said, that's going to really help people who feel isolated and alone, and felt like they can't tell their story. It's going to really help free them up. And I thought that was a pretty good validation, because that's one of our primary motives here, is to give a voice to people who feel like they don't have a voice. So that was a
Yeah.
great Christmas present.
That's awesome, and it kind of shows you how it's universal. It's not just our
Yep.
situation. It goes, beyond us, obviously. And so many people feel like, they can't tell their story because it has to do with God and clergy and people who are supposed to know better and, be more powerful in the religious realm or whatever. I don't know. But basically, yeah, I love that. I love the
Right.
fact that we are giving voice, and she probably doesn't even know, well, obviously doesn't know, the emails and
Right.
I mean, literally hundreds since the book has come out and the podcast has started. There's been literally hundreds of people that have come forth and ordered the book and, give a quick comment or a long comment saying, this has helped me. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to keep it up, Brian. We're going to keep it up.
Going to keep it up. Fight the good
Woo.
fight.
Last week, we talked about the school shooting that happened up in Madison. And again, there's more details coming out. And one of the things we brought out was what the CDC said, which was an answer to school violence and suicide contagion issues or ideation, is connectedness, right? Being connected to somebody that actually knows you, loves you, cares about you in the context of school or in the context of home. And so we talked about that a lot. And one of the things I wanted to make clear is that, I talked about our school assembly program going in and trying to help kids see that they have value. Well, we don't do a religious message at all. So we leave that part of it up to them, not even in a bait and switch way, like, hey, it could be God. Woo, go check it out. It's it's more like, listen, you have value. There is a source of value. You figure it out. I wanted to bring up a quote. I put this in. We give out a book to students. It's the value we talked about last week, but it's the Value Up book, and in the book I quote Max Ehrman. He said, "You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here." I love that quote because I think that sums it up. You can figure out where that source comes from, but the idea is that we all have a right to be here. We have value. It's not based on your performance. It's not based on what you do. And so I just want to make that clear that when we go into schools, it's not a bait and switch. We're not trying to slip God through the back door kind of thing. We respect the line. I respect the law, and I respect it for a lot of reasons, but one of them is giving people that privilege of process. Let them figure out where that comes from, because that's their right and that's their privilege.
Right. No, I think that's great. We were telling that story. I was thinking about, if you have a Christian spirituality, or if you're a Christian, you look at, again, back to Jesus' example in the gospel. he didn't create, a weekly meeting. He didn't create this structure. He just walked around, talked to people, and I mean, he drew some pretty big crowds, but he always like ran away from them when he was done, right?
Right.
It
Just trying to get
wasn't,
away from the crowds.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was about connecting people with something. It wasn't about, you know, building this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like that's, we've talked about it a lot, but, you know, recently I was at a church and, it just seemed like the whole idea, they had, it was a holiday type of thing. So it was people that were visiting from, their family members and maybe not church people. And they use that as an opportunity to try to pull people in to, a commitment message. And I don't know, it felt bait and switchy to me. It felt
Yeah,
like, you have an opportunity to pull the net in and get more people into your belief system. And it, I don't know, it just felt phony to me. And I think, Brian, my feeling is the days of a person standing up and just preaching for 45 minutes to an hour, those days are going to get numbered. Like it's not drawing people anymore. Right. I mean, I'm reading this book right now, and one of the quotes, it said something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase this, but basically, a demonstration of what you're trying to say is worth 1,000 speeches, right? Or a
yeah,
100 speeches, it said. When we demonstrate, what that means to be a Christian, um, that is more powerful than somebody standing up there for 45 minutes and just bloviating on, whatever they're trying to get across. The demonstration is a lot more, powerful and convincing, I think.
well, right. I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's, I mean, so this is super cynical, and I'm probably not quite this cynical, but in a lot of ways, it's a marketing pitch, right? You're trying to convince someone that they need to do what you think they need to do. And um, if finding wholeness in a spiritual practice or in a belief system is that, then people aren't going to find that, right? They're not going to
Right.
find it there.
And yeah, it puts the pressure on, like, I think one of the reasons why churches don't do it as much is, or what I'm saying is demonstrating it in front of the audience, right? Maybe testimonies, or really putting some work into telling a story that actually happened in the church that, demonstrates, God's grace in a really messed up situation. Well, that requires that stuff's happening, right? And
Yeah,
that there's somebody that's gathering that information, somebody that's actually doing the gathering and figuring out that there's something actually happening organically in the church, because that's the most powerful stories, right? When somebody comes in and says, this happened to me. Like, I love testimonies during baptisms, right? Because usually those people are not trained to be on a stage, right? I'm trained to be on a stage. I know what to do with a microphone in my hand. These people are not. And so they get up and they just start talking, and they it comes out of their heart, it comes out of their bowels, right? They're just like, bleh, and they say what really happened. I love that, because it's not censored, it's not filtered. It's just them talking about God doing something while they were sinners, while they were messed up, while they were really needing his love in a situation where they didn't deserve it. I
right.
love that.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it come all goes back to, I think it's the St. Francis quote. It's like, preach the gospel, when necessary, use words. And
Right.
um, it's interesting because in my 35 years at my former church that you and I shared an experience in, um, Sunday after Sunday, it was like you got this long, bloviated, way too long message, and then you were told, this is what you need to go out and do. And it's interesting, in this church that Cheryl and I are trying to go to now, you don't get that. You get, hey, think about this, see how this works out in your life. And that's it. That's just an entirely different vibe, and that feels way
Right.
better to me than someone trying to prescribe, you know, what it looks like to me, and so go look
Yeah.
like that.
Well, I was on the inside of that church. I was on staff at the church you're talking about, and there was this, like, in our staff meetings, when somebody, like, I was a speaker for that church, not a lot, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, if that. And but I remember the pressure to come up with a result. Like, you had to have a result. It had to be X amount. They didn't give you a number, but you felt this pressure of, doing an altar call and having, having a result, having a quantified, um, measuring of what you did. So you could say, well, X amount of people got saved, or
Yep.
whatever that means, or they got filled with the Holy Spirit, whatever that means. But you had to have a result, because if you didn't, there was no way to feel good about yourself, because nobody's going to go, hey, that was a really good message just on its own merit. It had to have a metric of success in it, and it was skewed.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to count, right? So,
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. I hope you had a great Christmas. Brian and I this week are going to be talking more along those lines of the metrics. And Brian, you want to explain kind of what we're going to be doing this week?
yeah. Well, I'll just bait you a little bit. So, talk about bait and switch. We're going to be talking about, drum roll please, the sinner's prayer.
Ooh, and how unbiblical it is.
Indeed, indeed. So we're skirting the edge again here, going over the line. So
Tune in. All right, we'll see you guys. Have a great week.
see y'all. Bye.